Ladies and gentlemen, one of the most famous fairy tales of all time is the story of Hansel and Gretel. You see, the story of Hansel and Gretel is a story of two youths who were abandoned by all adults in their life and against all odds use their ingenuity to climb out of a hole. And I want to talk not about how they got out of the evil step witch's, she's not a step witch, she's just a regular witch's house. I want to talk about how they got into it. That you see, Hansel and Gretel were very smart. They were very smart, smarter than their stepmother, smarter than their father, and in order to get home after the stepmother wanted them gone, they would leave little trails for themselves to return to where they've been. But one day, instead of leaving pebbles, they left bread. And as we know, when we've seen a flock of crows like bread, and the crows ate all the bread that Hansel and Gretel left out, leaving them lost in the forest. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because I want to talk about history. I want to talk about the passive breadcrumb trails that we leave behind and what these breadcrumb trails mean for our understanding of ourselves and how we can utilize our technology. By the end of this video, you should know what a passive breadcrumb trail of URLs looks like on your browser. We will be talking about a Chrome extension that I had built for myself that has proven invaluable to me in my workflow for capturing what I consume on the web and what we do with it when we get it into Obsidian. So stick around. When we search the web, we don't spend much time thinking about what we're consuming. We just kind of move from link to link, from recommendation to recommendation. Occasionally, once in a while, there's a search, there's a start to what we're looking for, but a lot of the times recommendation algorithms just feed us stuff that they think might be interesting. And if we really take the time to stop and think about what do we intentionally want to do on the internet, we realize that it might actually be better to look back at what we've already seen on the internet than to plan what's going ahead. Chrome does surface this information, but it's not at all easy to get to. In order to reach our history on Chrome, we need to go up to our little profile tab. We need to scroll down the options, go to history, and then from within your history, you can actually start searching and viewing the URLs that you went to. But what if you wanted to get a little bit more in depth? What if you wanted to have your history saved in a place where you know that you could find it later and resurface it in searches? How would you go about solving that problem? I think this is particularly interesting when it comes to frequently visited links. A lot of the links that we visit in our day-to-day kind of browsing of the internet might be just one-offs, but then there might be a certain channel or a certain Twitter person you follow or your email or certain sites that get visited a lot. And I think that these sites that we visit a lot tells us who we are and tells us a lot about ourselves and what we consume on the internet.
I don't need it. I don't need it. I definitely don't need it. I 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 need it!
I was really interested in this problem when it came to the idea of how can I take the links that I fetch and read in a day and convert it into a markdown table. The reason I was so interested in getting it into markdown table format is that markdown is a very composable format. It's usable on Visual Studio Code, it's usable on Obsidian, it's usable on Logseek. All of these tools that rely off markdown as a format can leverage this. And fortunately for us, history is just a list, right? It's a list of title, URLs, and the last visited time that we've seen it, which can be today. So when I was building the idea for Milluki, which is the name of the app, and I'll show you the GitHub in a second, I was thinking I wanted a few things. I wanted to make sure that I could edit functionality to remove some pesky links and to group projects together, because there's some links that are following a similar train of thought. And I also wanted to make sure that I could very easily download the results from this history and save it to my local machine. So let's see what that looks like. So this is the GitHub repo for Milluki, the project that I had just mentioned. And we can see here that there's a few features, right? So there's a calendar that fetches the Chrome history for an entire day. So when I go and I click it on my Chrome extensions, it actually just pulls up the history for that day. And then we enter a project editor, which allows for tagging links and easy jumping to URLs. So we can see here that we might want to level all of these things as JavaScript projects. And then we could click this URL here. It'll actually take us to the URL, which is super handy. And then we can can also delete things with underscore delete, or just leave them blank for like the Junker Queen origin story, for example. Doesn't really relate to JavaScript mapping at all. Finally, and this is more thanks to Obsidian than it is to the Milluki app itself, I can take these links and I can turn them into markdown format with the square brackets followed by the parentheses and have them show up directly in Obsidian. And not even just that, I can also link the day that I saw them. So when I actually visit my daily note, I can come back to my Chrome history for that day. And I can also even like watch the videos right in the markdown editor, which is really cool. If you watch something on YouTube, for example, these how to embed videos in Gmail messages, which I guess I was looking up on June 17th, 2022 at 10 in the morning. So you could tell that I was really trying to do some work. Back in Obsidian, we can see that a few of the things that I just showed, the links, the daily notes. One thing that I didn't mention is that it's really important to be able to use this results to search with omnisearch. This is very powerful because there'll be a lot of times where I'm looking for something that was like a link that I visited, but I don't really remember the title. I don't really remember the URL. And I'll use the omnisearch plugin. And the omnisearch plugin, which uses the mini search library under the hood, finds all of the instances of this thing that I'm looking for and automatically opens it even within the file. I'll pull up an example. So now we'll actually install omnisearch real quick and demonstrate like a search of this table in Markdown. So we'll install omnisearch for Obsidian. It's going to install this plugin. We're going to enable it. And one thing that we can see here is that this, ignoring this YAML up here, that this file here has a few things. So it says other, and then it has these kind of like links here, which have like links to the URL and then a link to the day. Obviously, these are days that are kept in my main vault for my main Obsidian. But in this example, we can see that they're all just being linked directly to each other. So what happens here is that we can actually see that this is just a regular markdown table. It's got rows, and these two rows that it has are title, and then way over here, because the URL is kind of wonky, depending on certain URLs, the date. So it has title and date, and those are the only two that I settled with on this particular app. But the idea is to be able to very quickly jump around your history throughout the day, right? So let's say that I have this omnisearch here, and I know that I was like looking for something about rogues, for example. So I'll type in the word rogue, and we can see that, oh, in this untitled MD, we have rogue, and we have 2 mentions of rogue. So we can jump to either of these mentions. It'll jump directly to that line, and then we can click on it, and we can watch the video or read the paper or whatever we were looking at in our initial search from days ago. So the main theory behind this is that we really want to examine what we are and what we consume over a period of time. The internet doesn't just need to be a flat line of consumption where you just move from one link to the next and this history just kind of builds up behind you but never gets revisited. With tools like Milluki, or just something that you can build on your own, this is purely for Chrome. If you're a Firefox user or Safari user, it wouldn't really work for you. And if you don't use Obsidian, it also probably wouldn't really work for you, right? This was very specifically built to the case of like, how can I put new life into the URLs that I've visited in the past? And how can I make sure that my favorite links stay with me and I can keep them in a library where they are resurfaced every once in a while as a note or as a study block or something like that. So remember that we are what we consume. Remember the story of the breadcrumbs of Hansel and Gretel, and try to be smart like them and think about, how can I use breadcrumbs to get to where I need to be? So thank you for watching. I've been me, you've been you. Have a good day. Bye.